Hi!
Hi!
Welcome to another Film Critters.
Processes!
Chicago International Film version dispatch report.
Here in Chicago.
Here live we're at the Chicago International Airport. Hanging out with, what do they got at the Chicago International Airport?
We're hanging out with Kanye West.
Oh, sorry, the O'Hare International Airport, where we're chilling with the staff of MFF. We're going to be heading that up afterwards.
Yeah. No, MFF is definitely on this year. We'll see you guys there. We are here reporting from the Chicago International Film Festival, where we've been watching a slew of really good films. Today is no different. IMO.
Yeah.
Because today...
No, today we saw a really good movie.
Yeah, a film called There Is No Evil. It's another film from Iran, so that's sick.
Yeah, it's really cool that the two best films I've seen were from Iran.
Yeah. Yeah, we love Iranian cinema here at Film Critters. We've been talking nonstop about it for a few months at this point, and we're happy to, because it's freaking good.
Yeah, I'm getting Iran pilled.
This film it's kind of sort of an anthology film. There's actually a big article in Variety that Jay just linked me to, which Jay might be able to give a little bit more info on, where basically the director was banned from directing for a little while.
Yes, so a thing I was reading about in this article is that it talks about how a lot of Iranian cinema has to be like a little cheeky with its politics sometimes, because obviously they're subject to censorship. The Iranian government is very not happy about movies that are super critical of it. And so the director's previous film, A Man of Integrity, was a little too too obvious, I guess, in what it was about. And so he was banned from making films. People who are a bit more aware about international film and whatnot, you might have heard about the case of Jafar Panahi, who also was banned from making films for a couple years, and his response was that he made a movie called This Is Not a Film.
Yes,
which is a basically a like documentary that he made via a friend being the director of it, and then had smuggled into the Cannes Film Festival in a USB drive in a cake.
Beautiful.
So, but apparently there's also this director was also banned, and his response was, instead of just like trying to cheekily get around it that way, he was just like, "Oh, okay," and then made another movie anyway.
Yeah. So Muhammad Rasulov.
Yeah, and kind of took a, well, fuck it. And this movie is very explicitly political.
Yes. So what we have here is 4 stories regarding, basically, so when you're conscripted into Iranian military service, I guess there's this kind of obligatory sort of execution that you have to go through, where you help like hang somebody for crimes. And so 3 of the films are essentially about that specifically. The first film is kind of, obviously there's spoilers. We're going to spoil the shit out of all this. But, so the first film kind of ruminates on like this guy who has this like pretty comfortable family life, and then he goes into work and he's essentially an executioner. He presses a button on a wall and like 5 people get hanged.
And that is essentially treated as like a twist. To be clear here,
it's kind of like a joke punchline kind of thing.
Yeah, it is a thing where it's like I kind of expected that was where it was going from having read the synopsis of the film, but it's still, the way it's constructed, it's still a very shocking scene because it comes very, very suddenly. And it's a job he does in the early mornings, and the implication is sort of that, like, this is how he is able to provide so comfortably for his family.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It like the short film starts at like the end of his workday, so you don't really see what he does, and then he goes through like all this stuff, and he takes some sleeping pills at the end of the night. And then he wakes up at fucking 3 a.m. and that's how he starts his days. Like every day, he goes and kills people, like several people.
Yeah,
Uh,
very. And the image they use specifically throughout the film is the image that we're this is like the only execution we're shown, and it's just from the knees down essentially. But
mhm.
it's he basically pushes a button and it yanks these stools out from underneath the prisoners, and so as we see is their legs suddenly like drop down, dangling. There's some of them like literally like urinate
Yeah,
in death, and it just holds on this like really horrifying shot of just like twitching bodies basically. But throughout the rest of the shorts, it continuously returns to specifically the image of stools being pulled out, and that they almost all refer to it as pulling the stools out.
yeah, yeah. So it kind of importantly, like, so it exists in this like very close context with the other three films, with the other three short films that make up this kind of anthology. But essentially, it doesn't really. It's tough because it doesn't really try to like demonize him. It's just because like the whole movie is just talking about the systems in place that enable people to essentially commit like government sanctioned murder. Uh, but he like the movie basically states like he has a family to provide for. He has people that he has to, he has mouths to feed. He has his mother to take care of. Uh, so it's interesting. It's really it's not the most interesting like short out of all of these to me. There's not too much to talk about with it, but it's it's like crucially important as like a part of the film just because of the way that really the way that the movie is structured, because the fourth film, which we'll talk
We'll
about
get
a little
to,
bit
yeah.
later, but that's kind of it shows kind of the other side of the coin where it's like, what if he said no? What would his life be like?
It's
uh
I think it's also worth noting that it's like the way it's structured is because it starts off almost like it's gonna be just like a family, not a family film, but a film about like a guy's family and stuff. And so when it ends with that, um, it sort of resets what you're expecting. So the second short opens with them discussing execution.
mhm.
The third, and then information you get in that about the way these things work leads into the third film where do we yeah, let's just take these like piece by piece and then we can go back over the whole thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the second film is a soldier doesn't want to commit these executions, but it's not just that it's like compulsory. It sounds like it's essentially like, oh, if you want a 3-day weekend, like if you want time off from your I think they say it's 2 years military service, you
Mhm.
have to do this. And if you want a passport, if you want a job, if you want to be able to do anything in Iran, you have to do these 2 years thing, and that is going to involve executions. And essentially,
Yeah.
it sounds like you can kind of volunteer to do the executions in return for like time off to go see family. Um, and that's the central. That is essentially the central conflict of the main character. And the second one is that he's desperately trying to find a way to get that without having to buy into the bargain of killing other people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's like a lot of bickering between him and his like bunkmates. There's like a guy who had already committed the execution, or like he was up to commit the execution, and then he like chickened out or something, so they punished him with like 4 more years of service or something like that. Basically, yeah, they all just it's this group of guys kind of bickering at each other about like the consequences for not doing it and trying to bargain with each other. And then it culminates in this really cool sort of like heist chase scene where the main character uh de- basically, oh, what do they call it in the military, like uh departs. I don't remember what the military term.
Desserts.
Deserts. Yeah, he
Yeah, he
basically like,
basically becomes a runaway. Yeah,
yeah, he
he
deserts this
basically
military
flees
base.
his military service.
Yeah. um which, yeah, and then the one following that, um it kind of circulates around this family that's spending time in this sort of country house, and they're grieving someone who was executed by the government for his teachings. And one of the characters, like boyfriend, comes back from military service, and it is revealed over the course that he is the one who executed the teacher. And it's
And
also
this
like
is
the main character girl's like birthday, and it's
and he's
very,
planning on proposing to her.
yeah.
It's and that's where the payoff of the second skit or second story comes into, because essentially all the details we learn, like, oh, he got this 3-day weekend to come see his girlfriend to propose to her because he executed this person. And there's this great line she has, like, after she finds out where they're in the woods, and she's just like, I did the math on, like, how many times you've had 3-day weekends to come see me. Like, basically saying that, like, she's realized now that, like, every time they've seen each other, it's been because he's had to kill people.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Which is such a, what a bummer of a birthday.
Yeah.
And
the
then
scene where they're all singing "Happy Birthday" to her is really, really difficult.
it's so, because
one
like,
of the most. Oh man.
only them both know about his relationship to the execution, and then the family's just like very happy when he proposes to her, and she kind of like cycles back and forth between the emotions of like, oh my god, yes, and like, do I want to marry this guy? Like, can I marry this guy knowing like what he's been having to do to come see me, to come be here to propose to me?
Yeah, basically, just all of a sudden you are marrying a murderer. Which, you know, good luck. Yeah, there's also this really just horrific, like, whole sequence where he finds out, like, who they're grieving. He finds out his relation to the person that they're grieving, and he, like, runs off and, like, tries to drown himself in a lake, and it's, ugh.
It's him specifically, like, they unveiled the guy's portrait, and it's like a giant portrait of him at like his little like memorial service, and he sees him and he just fucking runs out of the house.
Yeah.
And that's when you I think I want to say that it's also the guy that we see in the previous anthology who's handcuffed to the door. Like the prisoner that the previous guy was supposed to execute.
Huh. I didn't.
But
I
I would have
that.
to go back and like compare the two of them. But it looked to me like it was the same person, because he asks the guy like, "What did you do?" Because like that's what the other people like say, like, "Oh, that's how I try to get around it." I ask him what he did, and then he flees. And in the second one, it sets up this whole thing with like when he's trying to bribe one of the other guys to do the execution for him. The other guys are giving him shit, and they're like, how does this make you any better than us? Like you like you are paying someone to kill someone for you. It's not like you're stopping someone from, they're basically making this point that like you not doing this doesn't stop people from dying. It just gives you an excuse to pretend that you are somehow above us when you're just putting that responsibility on someone else.
Yeah.
So the implication I kind of got from that was that like the guy that we're seeing was the person who ended up having to execute that person. And so it becomes this like, you know, there is no fully opting out of these structures, and that even if you do like a very noble thing like the guy in the second movie and the second short does, you just off-put that to someone else, and then that ends up having, you know, completely untold reverberations that you couldn't expect, and like you end up ruining like even more lives because of it, which has further payoff in the fourth film. That's why it's like, that's why I'm assuming it's that, because it's something where it's like each film sets something up that is paid off or like elaborated on as a theme in the second or in the next one. And so the next one is a man and it's the longest one. That one's like an hour of the full 2.5 hour runtime.
Yeah, it felt pretty long.
And I believe that one is because it's they're specifically well outside of town, and I'm assuming that it's one of the longer ones because it's the one that the director could get away with filming the most of.
Sure,
because the shortest one is the one where they're driving around town a lot.
Yeah. So the fourth film, there's there's this kind of like patriarchal figure in sort of in the sticks. He's like living with his wife, and like basically on a farm, and their niece is visiting, and it turns out that this like guy is dying of something. He's coughing up blood. Uh, and they reveal that the visiting niece is actually his daughter, who he had to essentially ship away and have somebody else raise because he actually deserted when it was up to him to perform his execution during his military service. So basically the point of it being, or the point of it at least seeming like he gave up a normal life. He gave up a life with access to things like healthcare and like end of life care. And he becomes this kind of village doctor. And yeah, it's a really interesting sort of it's a really interesting denouement to the other films, just because it provides this really interesting bookended structure, to where kind of on one side you see how you can benefit from serving the state and performing state sanctioned executions, and also how how you're what the concept of like integrity is worth, especially since the daughter doesn't really take it very well, and she essentially says something like, "I wish you had executed whoever you were supposed to execute so that we could have a normal life, and you could have been, my father," and blah 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 blah.
Well, and another thing about that too, specifically, is she thus blames him for her mother's death, because she was raised by her mother's brother, because when they attempted to basically smuggle her mother into, I think it's Germany is where they're studying.
Yeah, she was speaking German for a little bit.
Yeah, I believe he basically had her sent to Germany so she would have to be around this stuff. The mother is I believe it's like the mother and the person who was supposed to bring her into Germany both end up getting killed.
Damn.
So, because she has that line where it's like, you saved one person's life, but you thought you were saving one person's life, but you ended up only killing two. And so, and that ties into like, she doesn't want to shoot a fox, and there's this whole image of the fox and the image, and it's I like it because it's like you said, it's an interesting denouement because the film doesn't make any real judgments about any of these characters. You just kind of see these slices of like these specific moments where they have to choose to go along with or not go along with the executions.
Mm-hmm.
And basically there's consequences for all of them, no matter which choice they make.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, that's basically kind of how the director seemingly describes the film, is just kind of ruminating on like the concept of consequences, which, it's hard not to read it as kind of a reaction to his career and him being kind of barred from more sort of conventional filmmaking, and how people are kind of tosses around how people follow orders and why they follow orders, and how there's just so much context to every single choice that a human being can make. It's really, I don't know, it's really well thought out, and it's really deft. I felt like
it's also got some like incredible cinematography. I don't know if there just were hidden cuts or what, but like I feel like in the sequence in the second one, when he's sort of deserting his position, it felt like a really long cut.
Yeah.
Like like there's like, if not one long cut, just like a couple of like really really long cuts. And I noticed that like throughout this film there were just scenes where it's like, oh, normally this would be like 2 or 3 cuts, but it just like holds and follows the character as they like walk around or move from room to room.
Yeah, it was really fantastically edited, and it had a lot of it flowed really really nicely. It was and for being something that's 2 hours and 30 fucking minutes, it actually kind of leaning on the anthology sort of structure as well, but it flowed really fantastically, and each part kind of made its point really really well. I also learned, I guess this isn't related to anything, but I learned that some places in Iran have countdown timers for their stop signs.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm gonna be stuck on that. I'm gonna cross my arms like a little brat here and demand that we get that
Yeah,
in the
no,
US.
that seems like it would solve a lot of problems here in America.
Please.
Uh,
But yeah, that's a complete aside.
I will say that like watching this and Careless Crime and Close Up really made me like, especially with this film because of the scenes of the family. I was
Hmm.
just like, man, Americans need to start watching like Iranian films. Like they've started to start watching Korean films as well because it's like I feel like this would demystify Iran in America so much because of just how much it's
Oh
like
yeah.
this just looks like this looks like America. Like they're buying Pepsi at the grocery store.
I mean, that's the thing that people kind of fail to understand is that every country is ostensibly like every country is either America or not America
Yeah.
in a really weird way, and all of the countries that we call developed are essentially countries where the project of colonial capitalism has been successful in some way or another. Iran is just a very rich, a place with a really rich history and a lot of like uprisings and things like that. So there's just is like a kind of interestingly tinged capitalism. But yeah, people. I mean, it doesn't really none of this matters. It's kind of just a whatever thing people can use as kind of like a boogeyman to justify killing people because a place won't do deals with you in the correct way.
Won't do deals with Donnie Deals himself.
With Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome.
Also, actually, returning, I actually loved the first short a lot, and I think it's just because it's like a very very cute family dynamic that for lack of a way to put it, I feel like I only ever seen television shows where it's like
Yeah.
just like their daughter being like such a princess. Like they go and pick her up and she's like, I'm mad at you, and he's like, oh no, why are you mad at me? And she's like, you said, why are you late? And he's like, well, I had to pick your mom up. And she's like, you said you would always pick me up first. And he's like, yeah, but I can't always do that. And she's like, well, you still lied to me and you should be punished. And he's like, oh no, okay, I should be punished. And she goes like, by buying me pizza. And he goes, okay, we'll get pizza. And then the mom is like, what, don't get her pizza, we said no fast food. And he's like, pizza's okay as a sometimes food.
Not to be like film school brain, but I love that as something that happens in this movie. It's like, oh, you did something wrong, you must be punished.
Yeah, no,
by buying me pizza.
Especially when we see that, like, oh, much lesser crimes are punished by death as well.
Yeah.
It definitely is like it really speaks to the fact that, like, because I think if they had opened with this guy executes people and then show these things, it would be a bit too like on the nose. But it's showing like how he obviously has to compartmentalize his life, where like he has this like very very soft like easygoing father like hood, and he just like provides for his family and he takes care for them, and his mother is sick so he's worried about her, but he's like trying to get her good care and stuff, and then just like, but his job is that like he gets up at 3 a.m. every day and goes to the people killing factory to kill people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's really sharp-witted. It's a really it's a really smartly executed little thing. Yeah.
He just,
Yeah.
that actor does just such a good job of just like presenting just that dad, that easygoing dad persona. It was a very very charming sequence, which is what makes the ending so much of that sequence so much more horrifying.
Yeah, for real, because yeah, he's definitely very sweet. There's this shot that's fucking heartbreaking where he is waiting at this stoplight, and there basically a lot of the first short is kind of comprised of him in traffic, him driving around, and they kind of contrast it to this shot of him at 3 a.m. driving into work, and the stoplight turns green and he just sits there and he doesn't go, and he doesn't go, and then it turns red again and he doesn't go, like he's just like staring at the light, like practically begging it not to turn green. It's really, 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 really smart and really just really heartbreaking. Like yeah.
What a good ass movie. The director. So two things about this film. The director as well. This one, he said it's also partially based on his own experiences, which one can thus mean that he probably has also had to execute people as part of service.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming this is sort of dwelling on guilt and stuff from that. And two, this is a little thing that oddly enough, a random like negative review I came across mentioned, and I was like, no way, and I looked it up. The daughter in the last segment of this is the director's daughter.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was a cute little touch. No, she's great in this film. She plays. I think what I like is that she plays like a very obviously like a daughter who has lived away from home, to the extent that she doesn't even really recognize it home. She recognizes it as like visiting distant uncles.
Yeah, for sure. Ugh, yeah. No, the fourth film is super, super rocky, super rough. There's another side character in the fourth film that we maybe should talk about. So we're at the point in films now where there are some things that films will do where you have to really like look at the pixels. We think that there's a CGI fox in this. We're gonna start a conspiracy theory that there's a CGI fox in this movie.
It's only in one show. So there's a real fox, because there's the fox that the daughter doesn't want to shoot. But there's like a single shot where it's like after he's told her and like kind of before he confronts her, and they have like their final conflict about it. And the fox appears again later, where it's an outside shot of the house, and we see the fox walk into their back patio and like drink from something, I think. And I think
they're actually feeding the fox. They're like feeding it meat or something.
Okay. And I'm convinced that is a CGI fox, because its shadow like clips over something at one point. And it has that kind of like walk animation where it's like when you put something over an image that like, but it's like you move it across faster than it's actually walking. Like it just doesn't move at the correct speed that I think it should move. And I feel like it has to be either a CGI fox or like a green screened in fox.
I think it was probably composited. I kind of see what Jay. See, the thing is, Jay was well, we in the theater. My prescription. No, Jay was streaming it to me over Discord. So I couldn't really tell, but I could see that like the shadow looked unnatural, and it might have been clipping over like other shadows. I don't know. Jury's out on this one, guys. Get a 4K copy and go right into those frames. We're gonna solve this mystery.
I'm gonna stream it on Blu-ray. Find a Blu-ray rip of this movie when it comes out.
Yeah.
I think I saw a thing saying it was getting US distribution. Let me look into that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he wasn't allowed to attend the Berlin Film thing where he won. That sucks because he was banned. He's also banned from traveling as part of it.
Oh my god.
Oh god, I need to do a year in prison for making specifically propaganda against the system.
Ugh. Yeah. If you want to see a movie that's kind of about how systems affect us, this is probably one of the better examples that I've seen. Just because all the people involved, like none of them are super stoked. But you know, there's just a lot of dialogue in the movie about how the government is like the government can just ruin your fucking life if you don't, you know, do what they tell you to do. Up to and including executions. Stuff that just really sucks to think about, but it is it is at least the conditions of Iran.
So it looks like it was Kino Lorber, the people whose names production is saying. So they have it. From glancing over their little write up about it, It looks like they're probably currently just moving it along the film circuits, which is reasonable. There is no evil. But they tend to be pretty good about eventually putting stuff out there. It might make it to like virtual cinemas for local places. So, keep an eye out on your local cinemas or places that have virtual cinemas and see if it comes to one of those soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Highly recommend it. It is it's long, but it goes by really, really breezily, especially because of the structure, like I said before. It's a really really smart film, and it very deftly deals with some of the most serious shit that you can talk about as a person.
It's very good. We highly recommend it. Don't let the 2.5 hour runtime scare you, because it being anthology makes it pretty digestible in that way. And I mean, if you really can't do it, then just watch like the first two, and then watch the third one, and then watch the fourth one in like 3 sittings.
Yeah.
Pretend you're binging a Netflix TV show.
Yeah, you pussy. How many episodes of fucking Tiger King did you watch this year? Huh?
In one sitting?
In
one sitting. You have watched 5 hours of Hannibal. You could watch 2.5 hours of There Is No Evil.
You little bitch.
Okay, so it says, I'm looking at the write-up. It says the film will be rolled out in theaters in fall 2020. This is pre-COVID when they announced that they got it.
Oops.
Followed by video on demand and home video release. So I would imagine maybe sometime later. I guess it depends on how they renegotiated their renegotiated their contract, given everything that has happened. Man, film distribution has gotten just so weird with like everything that's happened.
Yeah, they've really. I mean, to be fair, I feel like a lot of the pivots have been really good generally. I mean, I'm so far impressed with the Chicago International Film Festival stuff, even though we're ostensibly accessing it in lieu of basically we need VPNs, but still. It's
weird how things are shaking up the distribution game, especially if theaters fucking closing en masse, probably permanently.
Yeah. A lot of our local theaters are still going strong with this sort of online distribution model, which is cool. And once again, we bang on the drum. Check your local theater listings.
And Beacon is doing rentals now.
Fuck yeah, cool. Dude! Can rent out like a birthday party situation. Watch, I don't know, Salo with your friends.
I probably would. I'd be doing stuff like that, honestly.
Yeah, who haven't we shown Salo to yet?
Me. I haven't seen Salo.
Well, it's not very good.
Oh, well.
But anyway, let's watch it. I suppose that is There Is No Evil. That also concludes our dual coverage of CIFF, but we are going to have like a roundup episode after.
Where we just talk about
out after this, where we talk about what we saw on our own.
We're gonna talk about some of the other films that me and Brew watched separately. I mostly pulled the short straw, apparently, I think, on everything else I picked. I think the 3 that we watched together were the ones that were like definitely were my favorite, and the other ones were okay.
Yeah, I've watched one that I won't reveal, but I will describe as depressing. Another that I was going to watch, Sold Out, but I saw a bunch of really, really troubling discussion about the content of, and then another I have yet to watch, but I'm very excited for.
Also, going up tomorrow from when we record this, but in the past from when you listen to this, is going to be our next Throws It Back poll, and the theme is teenage girls. So if you want to get access to that and our past Throws It Back episodes, that's where we talk about...
I'm sorry, but we can't just...
sorry.
Listen.
Specifically teen girl angst movies.
We're in a very dicey era when it comes to
The phrase "teen girls." That's fair. That's totally fair. It was inspired specifically by us watching House of Hummingbird this year. So it's
Yes.
And Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. So it's sort of
our Teen Girl Squad poll.
Yeah, it's us looking back at like films from like the past 2 decades that like we think are kind of within the same oeuvre of like films that actually are about teen girls and like give them subjectivity and like humanity.
Yeah, because it turns out those movies can be extremely interesting.
I think that's it. Anything else? Oh, join our Discord. We'll have a link to the Discord down below.
Join the Discord. Discord's popping off. Everybody's talking about movies. Everyone's having fun.
People we were just talking about this movie in there. And now people are talking about weird face guys.
the conversation never strays far from Willem Dafoe or Robert Pattinson, for that matter.
Always circling our minds and our hearts.
Yeah. Oh, our patron saints, truly. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us here in Chicago.
We'll see you when we're back home. When I turn my VPN off and teleported back to Seattle.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. I am, as always, Baru.
And I am, as always, Jay Bear Hat. Bye.
Bye.